All right, we are live. I'm going to just give us a little more. There, that should put us starting our fireside chat around 2 after.
Okay. That's a very warm photo for a day like today, though.
It is. I feel that my background is the same. It's a very cozy, but
God, campfire. That's what you need.
Have you talked to Jocelyn already? Did you know I just went camping all weekend? So I am officially up to my quota for being outdoorsy. It is time to become indoor only house cat again and only be comfortable and wonderful for the rest of the summer before it gets too hot. Yeah, I did a Memorial Day floating on the Swanee River.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, canoeing, camping. What I've learned is called primitive camping for very good reason. Like, turns out I'm more of a glamping kind of gal. So
you wasn't car camping then, you were actually camping?
So there, in the hierarchy of things, there's like glamping, which is hard shell, air conditioned, possibly even an RV, fully contained. Then there's car camping, where you can still have electronics and like hair straighteners and stuff. And then there's primitive camping, which is what we did, which is a tent that you have to set up every day. You're cooking over open flames. We were canoeing, kayaking down the Swanee River. And stopped 2 nights. It was 2 nights and 3 days of.
That sounds wonderful.
Channeling my inner Pocahontas, and paddling like the canoe down the river. It was fun. It was really fun.
But that's awesome.
Sounds
wonderful.
Once a year is about my limit for that. So it was nice to. Especially because day 1 and night 1. Complete torrential downpour.
That's the worst.
Yes.
I've had that when camping before. Yeah.
Any activity that involves me having to wear a trash bag to stay warm is really not that high on my list. So
I used to camp a lot when I was younger and with in my past, but my husband's not so keen on the sleeping on the hard ground sort of thing. So
yeah, we've the great thing is, hi everybody, we see people coming in. Hi, Richard. Whitstable, am I saying that correct? In the UK. Hi everybody. Wow, we're doing really well so far. So I luckily in this camping and kayaking and canoeing extravaganza, the friends that I go with that brought me into this group, I've fallen in with a hard crowd. So the friends that brought me into this group that put it on every year, it's the 40th year that this group has been going. My friends camp a lot, especially it's a husband and wife team, and the husband is very outdoorsy. So truly all I do is I have some bins of camping goods and I put them in the canoe. I show up. And I'm like their tiny infant baby, and they have to feed me and take care of me. So it's not that bad. Hey, I don't have a sleeping pad. I don't have an air mattress. So
that's awesome, though.
The things that I need, and the husband is quite outdoorsy, and it's very. He loves to cook, which is fantastic. So every morning, what would you like for breakfast?
There's nothing better than a hamburger cooked over an open fire, when you're in the middle of nowhere. That is something I do miss from camping, definitely.
My goodness. We did that. Yeah. Night 2, we cooked cornscob in the fire, and we cooked cheeseburgers. Oh man, camping food is really, really good. Very, very good. So fun.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, hi. Oh my goodness, somebody takes their kitties glamping, camping.
Oh, that's the best.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Rita's out there, TJ's out there, Steve's out there. Ooh, Isle of Wight, yes. Oh, they have a great music festival there. Fantastic.
A few people from my state of Massachusetts. So hello to the home team.
Bob's out there. Oh, great. Southern California. Kathy, you'll have to let us know. A lot of her stories are based on related camping experiences. So some of those stories would turn out to be horror stories, perhaps. Absurdist stories, for sure. I mean, I'll have to tell you guys about the time I went camping with my brother and sister-in-law, and it was car camping, right? So it wasn't too bad. But my brother was in charge of the tent, and let us just say he is never in charge of the tent again, ever. He turned up with this, a very old school tent that had, pulleys and strings and sticks. It wasn't like the modern pop-up campers. It was very much like MASH 407.
Oh yeah, I know those tents. Those are what I grew up with. So,
and he definitely got it at the Army surplus store. And this was just a few years ago. And it poured, and it was leaking, and we almost drowned inside the tent. I mean, it was just a very so full confession. Everybody watching this live and everybody watching it recorded, don't tell my brother that this happened. But we abandoned and went to stay in a home. The next day, my sister-in-law and I went back to the campground to gather our things. We had left our kayaks down there and stuff. So we made a pact, she and I, that no matter what we found when we returned to the campground, we were going to tell my brother that the tent did not make it.
So you would never have to deal with it again. Because
my brother 100% would try to save it and make us camp in it again. And that was never, for the sanity of our family, that would just never happen. So yeah. So everyone now, the AutoCrit family is part of my secret. Don't ever tell him that we told him it just didn't survive, and then we dragged it to the dumpster. It was so great.
So someone needs to steal that for a book, is what I'm
thinking. We might have another challenge coming up. Maybe that could be part of the oh my goodness.
There's people from all over the place, like South Africa, Scotland, England, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, Herb, yes. Scotland. Oh, excellent. Dallas. Yes. Oh, this is fantastic. Great. Welcome, everyone. And I see somebody already wants my Fireside chat background. You know what? I'll post that in the Facebook community. Absolutely. Everyone needs to have a nice, cozy place to, if I can get my angles correct, everyone needs to have a nice, cozy place to come back to, get some good writing done, have some fun conversations. And speaking of fun conversations, let's get started. Everyone, hi, welcome, and thanks for joining us. Beth here with AutoCrit, as always. Today we're coming to you live with our first ever, there have been a lot of first evers lately with AutoCrit, but our first ever Fireside chat. Just a fun, casual conversation with a published author from our AutoCrit family. We'll do some Q&A. So if you have questions for Crystal, post them right here in our comments, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible. And want to go ahead then and introduce to you today Crystal King, joining me here today on the virtual stage, if you will. Crystal is a historical fiction novelist. She's published by Atria, which is in an imprint of Simon & Schuster. So she is also an editor, teacher, social media guru. Yes, she also has a day job. Cat mom, which we may learn more about later. Fingers crossed. I don't know if in favor or against it, but we may learn about cat mom. Bostonian, so she is with us from Boston today. And most importantly, she is an AutoCrit user. So has been an AutoCrit member with us for quite some time. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So give us a little bit of background to start us off on you, your journey, how you got into writing, and a little bit about your most recent books.
Yeah, Yeah, so I've been writing pretty much since I could hold a pen. Books and words have always been a part of my life. Although it wasn't until I was much older that I really thought I could write a novel. I didn't think I had the patience to sit long enough to do it. And so I did get my degrees in literature and writing and English and literature in general. But I ended up in a marketing career, but always sort of writing on the side. I did a lot of poetry. I ran a literary journal online for a while. And I went back to school in 2005 or actually 2003 during one of the Bush recessions. And I thought I'm going to go for critical and creative thinking. That was what my degree was in. But I ended up doing a thesis for writers in progress, for writers that are stuck in the middle of their novels. And I created a whole series of exercises for authors that are stuck. I'm working right now with my agent on potentially a book for that. So maybe that will be forthcoming in the future.
Oh, fantastic.
But when I was trying to find an agent for that book, and this was like 15 years ago at this point, and I kept getting the story that you don't have a platform, no one knows who you are, you need to teach or you need to write a book, or you need somebody to write a book using your exercises. So I thought, okay, I'll teach. So I ended up around the same time getting I lucked out and started doing some work with Grub Street, which is this incredible online writing community. They do classes online. They have just the most amazing teachers, and they're just, I would not be an author if it weren't for Grub Street. I really believe that. They're amazing. So I lucked out, and they gave me my first teaching job, teaching these exercises at Grub Street. And then I thought, well, I should write a book. So what would I write about? So I was writing a novel about some chef, basically this celebrity chef who had a magical set of knives. And but these knives had traveled through time and through history. But I needed an origin story for these knives. And I came across this story about this gourmand in ancient Rome named Apicius. And I thought, and he died in this totally messed up way. And I thought, I'm going to write that story on how he died. And that will be a scene in my new novel. And it turned out that was so interesting that I decided that I was just going to write about Apicius in general. And that was my first novel, Feast of Sorrow. And that came out in 2019. Oh, God, time flies when you're having fun. 2017.
Wow.
And yeah, and then my second novel, in learning about Apicius, I discovered that there's all these culinary I call them culinary heroes in history that nobody really knows about in Italian cooking. And they have all these cookbooks that have been printed, but nobody knows about the people behind them. And we don't know much about the people behind them other than the cookbooks that they left behind, or the manuals of stewardship, that kind of thing. And so my second novel was The Chef's Secret, which is about the famous Renaissance chef Bartolomeo Scapi. And that came out last year.
Yay!
And it just came out in Italian in February, right before all the COVID stuff hit. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was fun.
And
Yeah.
I've just been reading some of the most glowing reviews of this book, and they all mention how don't read it when you're hungry. So that it's just,
there's a lot of food. Yeah.
Food, and it really paints a very compelling picture, enough to just make people actually hungry. So tell us.
I have cookbooks on my website, actually, for both ancient Rome and for Renaissance Rome. And they're recipes that I've recreated from these cookbooks, or that I've worked with chefs or food bloggers or food historians to actually do some of the recipes too. So if you're into cooking and you want to go back in time, you can check those out, and they're free.
Oh, fantastic. So those are available on Crystal's website, which is www.crystalking.com. and try those recipes. Let us know how it goes. I'm so intrigued because I think, Crystal, you mentioned they use like ancient grains and just some really, really interesting things.
Fish sauce and stuff like that.
Fantastic. And then your books can be found, I believe, bookshop.org. Tell us about this because it's a little bit different than.
Yeah, so you can find my books, in bookstores and all the usual places. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all of that. But I recommend that you buy from bookshop.org, because what bookshop.org does is it allows you to connect up with, and I don't know if they have an international division. So for those of you that are in other countries, definitely you can get my novels on Amazon for sure. But in bookshop.org, if you're in the US, what they do is they connect up with indie bookstores, and you can choose the bookstore that you want to purchase from. And so when you buy if you buy one of my books from bookshop.org, you can specify that your local indie bookstore is the one that gets the deal for it. So they actually get a percentage of the sale. So it helps to support indie bookstores. And they kind of came up during the time when COVID was really hitting. And so this was a really amazing way to help some of these indie bookstores stay solvent during this time.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. And you're right. It's just been such a relevant time to really help those independent bookstores, because COVID has changed the landscape significantly. So perfect timing for that. Thank you for letting us know about that. Be able to support your independent bookstore and still get Crystal's amazing novels, both of them, and kind of have a weekend, I think. Try some recipes from Crystal's website and get the books and do a lot of reading and baking and cooking. And
there's all these great tour sites from Italy that are now doing a lot of their tours virtually online. So you could just make a whole Italian weekend out of it.
Oh, I love an Italian weekend. That's fantastic. By the end of it, you'll want to reorder the books in Italian. So far, that's great. Crystal, tell us a little bit around your books. They're very historical, a very passion throughout them for the food, the culture, all about Italy. Where did this particular kind of set of interests come from with you? How did that get started with your interests?
Well, it's funny because I grew up a really picky eater. I didn't like eat all sorts of foods that most people would consider normal, like mushrooms, or I wouldn't have ever ventured towards, certain cheeses, or there was just a lot of food that I would never have tried, a lot of vegetables, and I didn't eat much fish at all. I'm still not a big fish fan, but I will try it. I like lots of seafood. But when I met my husband 20 years ago, he liked to go to nice restaurants. And I also grew up in a family that didn't eat around the dinner table. We only ate at the dinner table for Easter and for Christmas. And my dad was working late a lot of the time, and there was 3 kids in the family, and mom just stuck Kraft macaroni and cheese on the table. And it's like, I joke that there's like Kraft mac and cheese in my blood, because the color of my blood is probably orange.
Same.
Yeah. So, but when I met him, he wanted to go to nice restaurants, and he wanted to eat at the dinner table every night for dinner. And I just thought that was so interesting and new for me. And I'm like, I like this guy. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to try everything once. So I just determined that I was going to do that. And there are still a lot of foods that I have a hard time with because I can't do bitter foods very well. So, and I'm not a fan of cooked greens or things like that. But one of the things that I really ended up loving was sitting around at the dinner table with him every single night, and then entertaining and meeting friends and making dinner for them. That was something I didn't really grow up with, and so it was really it's something that has become really important in my life, and that fueled my interest in food history and food memoirs. And around the same time, one of my friends gave me MFK Fisher's The Art of Cooking. Or is it The Art of Cooking? Oh my God, totally, that's not the title, but it's my pandemic brain is failing.
Everything is excused when you say pandemic in front
the
of
art
it.
of eating. I think it's the art of eating. The art of eating, and it's just this incredible set. It's a collection of her books that she has written, her food writing that she did, and she was really the first contemporary food writer that we know, and was just inspiring. So that kind of got me set along the idea that if I was going to write a book, I wanted to write it about food.
That is fantastic. And I felt like when you were describing the family not eating around the dinner table, I thought, oh, we could be sisters. Same. I also have Kraft mac and cheese right in my veins.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of Hamburger Helper.
Yes. There were like a few key dishes, and those are in there for sure.
Yeah.
So let's jump into your writing process. Mel, from our viewing audience, would love to know kind of how long did it take you to write either or both of your books? And I want to expand that a little bit and talk about the research involved as well. So there's the writing bit, but I would imagine there's also this lengthy research situation that needs to happen because you're writing about, you know, Renaissance Italy. That's just tons of research. So talk to us about kind of how long it took you to write versus research, and your process around that.
Yeah, so I would say that my first novel in particular, I wrote that over the course of maybe 5 years, but I was a weekend warrior. I would just work on Sundays mostly. I didn't sit down every single day and really try to get a book out. And so it took me a while. And also, it was the first time I'd written a book. I really didn't know what I was doing. I'd read a lot. I'd gone to school, but when you write a novel, people don't understand what that's like, and then the aloneness that's there, the trying to figure out who you could trust for critiques. You know, do I, you know, am I doing dialogue right, or is my point of view okay? I think I rewrote the point of view. I rewrote the first 15 chapters of Feast of Sorrow, I think, in five times to get the point of view right. And I finally settled on first person for that novel. And I was really resistant to doing it. And it turned out that was how the book needed to be told. And then the second time for The Chef's Secret, it was much easier because I had a sense of what needed to be done, and I knew what was going to happen when it got to copy edits, and I knew what an editor was going to like, and how I had a sense of how to pace the book in a way that I didn't before. I had gone through so many revisions with trying to find an agent and workshopping it, and then by the time I got to an editor who also, you know, tore it apart a lot more, that by the time that Chef's Secret rolled around, I was like, okay, now I kind of at least have a sense of this, and it's more about just getting the nuances of the story right. So that book probably took me 2 years, but I was writing that at the same time I was promoting Feast of Sorrow. So this third novel that I'm working on probably will be about a year in total. It would have been done. I finished the draft earlier this year, but then everything hit, the COVID stuff hit, and my edits on that have been a little bit slower. So the second part of your question about the research.
Yes.
So I do a lot of things from the research perspective. I read everything I can. I read from source material of the time frames that I'm in, because I think that hearing the voices of the people in that era are really important, and there's some really cool, interesting literature in those time frames. I spend a lot of time on Google Earth and Google Maps, and I go through the cities. Even though it's modern, a lot of these places that I'm writing about are old world, and so the structures of the streets are often the same, particularly in the Renaissance. There's Renaissance Rome, the streets are really not a lot different in the areas that I'm writing. And then I also spent a lot of time in Google looking for maps and things like that of those old, of that time frame, and I correlate everything.
Oh, nice.
But going through on Google Earth is really wonderful because you can walk the streets and you can get a sense of distance between one place and another. You can get a sense of what the old buildings might look like if it in certain areas, the placement of certain intersections of streets, and so I rely on that a lot. I was telling some other people this morning on Twitter about this other site, Online Etymology. It's an online etymology dictionary. And this is the coolest site if you're trying to figure out the origin of a word or of a phrase, because when you're writing historical fiction, you can't use phrases that originated for common things. Like, so I wouldn't say, oh gosh, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is a vulgar one, but I wouldn't say, come and sit down and shoot the shit with me, like in Renaissance England. I wouldn't say that, right? You would say, come and have a cup of tea and I don't know what you would say, but you would have a very different conversation, right? But there's a lot of other things that you can look up to figure out, all right, did this exist in this time frame? When did for example, there's a word plonk, which means bad wine. It's very common actually in British English, more specifically than in American English. And that didn't originate till the medieval ages. And so, and that was one of those words that I'm like, should I use it to describe ancient Roman wine? Should I not? And you can fight with your editors on some of that, but some of them are too modern, but that dictionary is awesome. I also spent a lot of time in Google Books, and Google Books is amazing because, and there's a lot of problems with Google Books in the sense that, you can dive into a lot of modern stuff, but Google Books also has books that you can't get in libraries very easily, and that they're out of copyright. They are old books from the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. I can go back and actually find things of historical nature that I wouldn't be able to easily find if I went to a library without waiting for weeks to get a book. Or this puts stuff at the tip of your fingertips. And I really love being able to gather information quickly from books that I would never have access to. I do spend money on JSTOR, and some of you may be familiar with JSTOR from your college days or your university days. And it's a place where you can find a lot of academic papers. JSTOR is not inexpensive. You can download papers for like a fee for each one, or you can get free access. And right now during the pandemic, they have given a lot of additional access for free to a lot of their materials. But if you're really if you're studying a lot of historical records, there's a lot of papers, academic papers written by scholars that can be found in JSTOR that are not always easy to find in other places. And so I do spend money on JSTOR. The good thing about spending money as a writer is that once you start to get going, you can write things off. And so that's one of those, which is good. And then, of course, AutoCrit, because when I need to really understand if my manuscript is completely up to snuff, that would be a phrase I would look up in the online etymology dictionary. I go to AutoCrit, and I spend a lot of time there cleaning up before I send it to my agent, before I send it to my editors, and I do that. I did that when I was when I was still looking for an agent, and then right now I think it's almost even more important in many ways, because this way it saves me time and it saves my editors time. By the time they get it, it's really polished. So I do spend a lot of time in AutoCrit too.
Oh, that is excellent. And I want to jump into that a little bit more. But first, quickly, with historical fiction, do you feel that you need to, or do you in your work, provide references around, like, to support the research that you've done? Do you provide references in your work?
What I do is I put an author's note at the back, because I'm writing fiction, so I can steal and beg and borrow in a lot of cases.
Creative license.
And I'm writing in a period of time that is way far back. It's not like I'm writing in the 1980s where I might, if I steal a phrase from something, it might be copyrighted. So like, for example, there's a comment that appears at the beginning of The Chef's Secret. And then the comment was a real comment that appeared during this time frame. And it really was seen around the world for almost 2 months. And it frightened a lot of people. So I have one of the corner priests that is just basically preaching on the corner about the world coming to an end, and the sinners are going to get theirs. But I stole a whole bunch of I stole a line right out of a speech that Savonarola gave. And he was a heretic friar that really was a zealot. And he was so much of a zealot that the church just couldn't abide by his teachings anymore. And he was becoming dangerous, mostly to the rich way of life that a lot of the cardinals had. And so but I stole a line of his directly from it and added it into the book as a speech for somebody else. But that's where I note it in the back. I put it in my author's note. I try really hard to stay with what we know about people. I try to stay as real as possible. And what I don't know is where I fill in the gaps and I connect the dots. And then I try to be really clear on what's real in the note to say, okay, this was real, this person was real, that person's not real. This is the inspiration I took from this event, that kind of thing. So you have a lot more license as a fiction writer.
Oh, I love that. And it's so enjoyable to take that license sometimes. But
yeah, that's what makes it fun.
So when it comes to the writing itself, what's your personal process? Do you have a dedicated writing space? I see a really great red chair behind you. Do you have family rules? No cats allowed?
No, cats are the uncontrollable. So
cats are always allowed, just for the record.
Yeah. I write in a bunch of places. I'm actually sitting at my desk right now. I have a couple desks, but one of them is a standing desk. I can raise it or lower it, which I think is really important, especially now that I'm also working from home. I have a day job as a social media professor for HubSpot, which is a software company. And then, so I'm working from home during the day, and then I'm writing at night or in the morning and on the weekends. So standing desk is really important, but I do try to change it up from time to time. I often will take my notebook with me. If I'm, in previous days when I was meeting a friend, I would go early and sit at the bar and write for a while. I wrote a lot of my novels in cafes. I would often on like a weekend, I'll just go and try to get out of my space and go somewhere else. And I like that din of the cafe. That's something that I do miss a great deal. Yeah. And when it's really nice out, I have a balcony that I go sit and write at, and especially in the morning when it's quiet.
Oh, that is wonderful. I've been hearing a lot that people love being able to focus at home, but also that din and distraction and just the energy that you can pick up in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I do it as well. I'm with you on that for sure. So let's talk about editing. Of course, our favorite here at AutoCrit. Do you finish an entire draft before you edit, or do you do chapter by chapter, or just mix it up? If you feel a little stuck writing, you go edit for a while. What does your journey look like with that?
So I love to edit. I mean, I really like to edit. I would much rather edit than sit down and write something new. Like that, writing new stuff is hard. But editing is easy. Well, not easy, but it's something I can work with. So my problem is that I will over edit, and I'll over edit in a way that's not necessarily beneficial. I will spend too much time looking at paragraphs. I will spend too much time toying with, a certain phrase, or I will spend a lot of time looking up things like, did they have that bird in 1534? So was that in Europe then? Or, did they have tomatoes in what year did they arrive in ancient Rome? Which they didn't, by the way. So it's stuff like that. I will just get caught in that phase. And so for me, I find it really beneficial to just check mark XX, I don't know this. And to clean up, as I'm a fairly good grammarian and and speller and all of that. So I can get all of that for the most part and have a fairly clean first draft. And so I just try to get that first draft done. And then right before I send it to my writing group, who I've been meeting with for like 12 years now. Or before I send it off to my agent or my editors, then I go through it chapter by chapter. I don't upload the whole document to AutoCrit. I do it by a chapter, and I really go through every single. I have cats.
We made them a banner. Okay, so that's Merlin, and
yeah.
So
Merlin and Nero have been picking at each other all day, so I'm gonna hang with Merlin for a little bit. So where was I? Oh, I edit chapter by chapter, and for me, I find that easier. I have a really one of the things that AutoCrit showed me is that my number one word is that, and I think on my last draft, I think on Chef's Secret, I cleaned out over 800 that's that I didn't need. Because that is a really big filler word, and you don't think of it as one. And when you're reading like when my writing group was looking at the documents, they wouldn't notice it at all. But once you start to pull that word out, you can actually make tighter sentences, and I can find more descriptive ways to describe things. So even just that small change made such a big difference. But finding repetitive phrases, they're not even so much words, but there's certain phrases that I would repeat a lot. And being able to get rid of my dialogue tags or clean those up and make them into action sentences. I can't even, I actually am, you already know this, but I don't know if everybody else does, but I am like the biggest proponent of AutoCrit on the planet. I love the tool more than anything. And which is how you found me, is because I'm just telling everybody about it.
We love you too.
And I was looking back at a presentation I did for Grub Street for one of the classes I did. This was yesterday, and I found one from 2016 where I was telling everybody to go get AutoCrit because it was so amazing. And it's come so far since then. So it's really amazing at how much it's changed my work. And I have writers that I'm connected to that I've turned on to AutoCrit, and they use it in very different ways. I have a friend who actually uses it inside AutoCrit and will go in and edit as she is working through all of the sections. Or other friends who will use it to spur new ideas because they realized that they were kind of stuck with the phrasing and things like that, and it spurred a new ideas for them. Or there's other friends that I have that are like me that will upload at the very end and just clean house. So yeah, I love AutoCrit. I really do. I seriously can't say enough good things about it.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's great that you mentioned repeated words, repeated phrases, because spoiler alert, community, we are going to be talking about those over our next few deep dive live sessions. So starting next week on Tuesday, we will be announcing some new information, but in the upcoming weeks throughout June, we're going to be talking a lot about repeated words, frequency, repeated phrases, repeated unusual words, that kind of stuff. So definitely stay tuned. Thanks for the lead in, and thank you so much for your kind words. It's just been amazing to have you as an AutoCrit member, of course, and love the fact that you're such a fan. I think you'll be excited with some of the new stuff we have coming as well.
Awesome.
Would love to kind of talk a little bit more about your publishing. So Feast of Sorrow and Chef's Secret were both published by Atria, which is, of course, an imprint of a big five publisher, Simon & Schuster. Mm-hmm. Atria also carries Vince Flynn, the
Reese Witherspoon, and
oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And Philippa Gregory. These are amazing, amazing authors, and that is just so incredible. It's just a really great company to be in terms of, gosh, that's the league. That's amazing. How did that feel, and what was your journey like from having a book, from having even a completed draft, or even before that, to oh my gosh, Philippa and I are now
we're not friends, but
close.
But at least we briefly had the same editor, so I guess that's my claim to connection with her there. But one of the things, so publishing is hard. The whole industry is hard. if there's any one piece of advice I can give to anybody, it's that if you're going to write a book, you should do it because you love it, not because you're going to make money from it, because you probably won't, not because it's an easy path to get there, because it's definitely not. And the chances that you're going to be the next J.K. Rowling are probably super slim, like almost none, right? So you do it because you love it. There are so many rewards to doing it, though. And that first day you hold your printed book in hand is like, there is no way to replace that feeling. Even just now, I think about it, and it's a tearjerker that first day when you sit on the stoop and you open that box and you're like, yeah, there it is.
Wow.
It took me 3 years to find an agent. Finding an agent, I think, is one of the hardest things to do. And one of my friends is the really popular women's fiction author, Randy Susan Myers. And she always says, you can't complain about all the agents you're querying until you've queried 100 agents. And that's daunting, right? So, but that kind of kept me going, because it also made me realize, okay, it's not a lot if I've queried 30 and had 30 rejections. That's not really a lot yet. I think I probably queried maybe 35 or 40, and I lucked out and I met my agent at a book party. But along the way, those other agents that I met with really helped me figure out what I needed to do to make my book a better book, so that when I finally got to the right agent, it was in the right place. I did workshop it at Grub Street several times. I also did one of the things that's really cool about their manuscript mart. It's called the Manuscript Mart. It's part of the Muse in the Marketplace. It's their writing conference that they have every year, and you can pay a little bit. It's not a little anymore. It's a couple $100. But the money is the agents and the editors that do it pro bono, and that money goes to Grub Street to fund scholarships and things like that for their writers and for their teen writers. And they do a lot of charitable work in the writing community. So it's really cool, because not only does the money go to charity, but then you get an agent or an editor that can tell you, they will read 20 pages of your manuscript, your query letter, and your first 20 pages, and they'll tell you what they like or don't like, and you might walk away with an agent. So it's worth it. And they do it every year in April, I think. It's switched from May to April. So I did that, and I got incredible feedback. I was rejected on every single one of those, but the feedback that I had on that was amazing. And I know other people who have gotten agents that way. So you have to keep at it. You have to keep plugging away and take the feedback that you get and rework and rework. And once my agent got my manuscript, she gave me some. By then, it was so polished for most of it. And I discovered AutoCrit maybe 6 months before I found her. So I think that helped me a lot to really clean it up by the time I got to her. And then it took her 6 months to sell it to Atria, which was then, actually, she sold it to Touchstone Books. And Touchstone Books, and I had a different editor. The editor I had left not that long after. Then Touchstone was dissolved and moved into Atria Books. Touchstone was another imprint of Simon & Schuster. And then I briefly had the same editor as Philippa Gregory. I had her for, I think, 6 months. Then they switched me to her assistant. So I'm on my third editor now. And so that's the other thing you have to get used to. And and publishers and editors fall in and out of love with their authors too. They're always looking for that next big hit. That's the sad truth of it. And so once you get in and you have that book and you're all excited, you can die inside from how tough the publishing industry is after that. And that's when you go back to the fact that you do it because you love it. You do it because there are writers like you that I can connect to. There's readers. The readers can be so amazing. I have a letter that I carry around with me. I have it with me right now, actually. I will show it to you because I seriously carry it with me everywhere. It's from this girl named Eleanor, and she sent me a card from Venice, and she wrote me this really beautiful like letter about how her father is a chef and how much my book touched her. And I carry this with me all the time because that's what it's about. It's about you affecting someone else so much, so that's why you do it. Oh my God, I'm totally crying.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why you do it. And then there's other perks too. Like last year I got an invite to do lectures on a luxury cruise ship that allowed me to go to Malta and to Sicily and Sardinia for free and just talk about food and my books, which was pretty cool. So, it's stuff like that. That's the rewards, right? Because you love it. And if you love what you write and you love what you're doing, you'll find success. I really believe that.
That is so compelling. That's so compelling. Absolutely. In here, this is so great. And it's just what so many people strive for, is to make that difference in someone's life and to put their creativity and their art out into the world and to see it make an impact is just massively.
Yeah. I mean, all the hard stuff, it is so worth it. I don't want to sugarcoat it for people because it's a tough industry and you have to do it because you love to write and you want to connect to readers. That's the ultimate goal.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So let's switch it up. We'll do a few rapid fire questions here. So first and most importantly, I don't mean to bury the lead, but this one I think we should have opened with. Tell me, does pineapple, and I want to hear from the folks in the audience as well, does pineapple belong on pizza? We'll give folks a few seconds to kind of come in and answer. I know what my feeling is. Crystal, what is your feeling? Does pineapple belong on pizza?
So I write about Italian food.
Yes, you are
all the Italians would just cringe to hear me say that I love pineapple on pizza. But I grew up in like Washington State and Idaho, so I get a pass, right? One of my favorite things is when there's this famous baker, chef, Bonci in Italy, and there's an episode. I feel like it's like Zimmern or I think it might have been him that got him to try pineapple on pizza. and he begrudgingly did it. And he is like the pizza master of Italy, like hands down. And he begrudgingly did it. And he sort of had to admit it was okay. And then he was like, but I'm never going to make it again. Because it's such a travesty. You would never know.
It never happened. Never happened. You have to pretend that never happened. Right. Dark days. That's fantastic. I agree with you. Pineapple on pizza, absolutely yes. I'm seeing some comments come through. Love it, hate it. There's no middle ground. This is the controversial question of the day. I'm a yes for ham.
Anchovies, no.
Anchovies, absolutely not. Anchovies on anything or by themselves, no. Just no to anchovies.
So, but in ancient Rome, I cooked with a lot of fish sauce, which is made from anchovies.
Oh,
and I do not like fish. Boy. But if you use, it's called garum, but now they make it, it's called colatura, and you can get it. Or a Vietnamese fish sauce is the same thing. If you've ever had Thai food, you've had fish sauce.
Yeah.
Thai food, Vietnamese food.
A long way.
I use a tiny bit. It gives an umami flavoring, not a fishy flavoring. So.
Yes. Love it. So who would you say are your top 3 inspirations? Who inspires you?
Oh, that's hard. I have a lot of inspirations. My writing group really inspires me. The women that are in it, they one of them is a mother and manages to write. 2 of them are mothers actually, and managed to write amidst like craziness. Another one of my other writing partners, she will just go heads down and doggedly work until she gets something done. I wish I had sometimes had that drive. My writing inspirations, I love Italo Calvino. I think his writing is beautiful and magnificent and amazing. Haruki Murakami. I don't know if I said his name right, but love his work.
Love.
I always loved Margaret Atwood. I think she was one of my inspirations as I was throughout the years. I got to meet Madeline L'Engle when I was 10 years old at a writing conference, a junior writing conference. And that she was definitely like a big inspiration when I was a kid. So, yeah.
Those are great answers. So, before we wrap up and move to some community questions, your top tips for authors who are looking to break through like you did, and go.
Okay, number one, derriere in chair. You have to put your butt in the chair or nothing's going to happen. Yeah. There's no two ifs, ands, or buts about that.
I see what you did there.
I believe firmly in setting goals. Like where do you want to get to, and how do you want to get there? It's not enough to say I'm going to write a book in 2 years or a year or 6 months. You actually have to set smaller goals. How are you going to do that? Try to set for the most of the book that I'm working on editing now, I set a 400 word a day goal. And what you find is when you set 400 words, that's not very much. It's just a few paragraphs. It's like maybe a page. And once you set that, you realize, oh, I've actually written 800 words today, or I wrote 1,000 words this morning, or so setting that, and no matter when during the day I would write those words, I managed to get that book done in probably 7 months, the core of it. So,
wow.
So set goals. I am a firm believer in outlining because I'm a historical fiction author. I have to correlate timelines and history and people and ages and all of that. But I really think that outlining is the best, because when you have a soggy, stuck, middle in there and you don't know where things are going, to plot it out, it does help. It gives you structure. It makes a difference. So if you're in the middle of a book and you're a pantser and you think that you're just going to sit down and write what comes to you, and you're stuck and you're feeling frustrated, I highly recommend just stopping what you're doing and outlining the next few chapters. At least just try it, okay? So outlining. AutoCrit. It's amazing. And then my last one would be network. Network with other authors, network with people in your writing community, get to know your bookstore owners, get to know people in the world of literature and in the world of writing, and start building your platform in social media and on your blog. And I know you're probably thinking, a lot of you are thinking, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm not good at that. But nowadays, publishers want you to come with readers. They want you to have at least an idea of who you want to reach, and that you have some small platform. You have your social media started. You might have a blog going. You have a little bit of what they call a platform. It's not enough to just sell a book. If you come with a little bit of a platform, you're more desirable to publishers because they know that you're going to be invested in self-promoting. So,
well, that is such a perfect segue. A little bit more, if you would, please, about social media and how can you use that to, I don't know, build your own brand so you come to the table with something to offer to a publishing house. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so social media is like my big thing, right? So it's also a really complex subject, and I find that people are daunted by it. Mm-hmm. They're familiar with Facebook, but they're not always familiar with all the nuances of it, or, do I really need a business account, or, that kind of thing. If you're not that familiar with social media and how to navigate it, one of the cool things that I get to do in my day job is I actually just teach social media, and I teach it on video, and all the videos I create are not about the HubSpot software, so you don't have to think that you're going to get an ad in it. Although sometimes I'll mention it, but it's not about that. It's really just teaching how to use Twitter, how to use Facebook, how to use Instagram. And there's a whole social media certification, which really is geared towards small businesses, but I would argue an author is a small business. And so the cool thing is you can go to HubSpot Academy and you can sign up for those courses. Just search for social media courses, and they're free. And you can take those and learn how, like Instagram, for example, if you want to learn everything about Instagram, like how to switch to a business account, how how to, manage your posts, that kind of thing, then you can, that's it in a nutshell. But I do think you should have at least one social media platform, so a channel that you like enough that you'll keep doing it and be consistent at it. Whether that's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, at least one. If you're really great, you'd have them all, because you might eventually need them all, because all your readers are going to be in different places. This is the other thing to think about, is that social media is like a billboard. It gives you the chance to be in all the places that a reader might be, because you get your news differently than I get my news, and then Beth gets her news. So yeah. And we've got fighting cats again. Great.
Oh, and Nero and Merlin are back.
They've been up since like 5 a.m. and they haven't slept today. So that's.
Oh goodness. Well, it is nap time for everything. We will, by the way, if it's okay with you, Crystal, we can post the link to the social media certification training.
Yeah, HubSpot Academy.
As part of your day job, we can post that link for everybody.
I'll share that, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So we will definitely provide that. I know a lot of people are interested. We've seen a lot of comments. What was that link again? So we'll provide that out to the community, and you can see more of Crystal in her day job role. And so Crystal, is outside of your day job, let's go back to talking about your authorship and what is next for you. You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, you're working on your next book. What kind of spoilers can you share for us? What's in the wings? What's coming?
So I have two kind of in the process. One, my agent's starting to shop around, probably not with my current publisher. I don't know, actually, because my current publisher doesn't do a lot of what I'm looking to do with that. We'll see. But my fiction book, which I'm getting ready to send hopefully to them in the next few months, is about a meat carver to Alessandro Farnese, who was a cardinal, one of the richest ones in Italy. And that is a super fun book. It's set in the same time frame as The Chef's Secret, and so there's some little crossovers, and it's all about food, so much food. Oh. So I'm finishing edits on that. This book has been harder. I've heard from a lot of my author friends that the third book is a tough one, and I don't know why.
Unusual.
Yeah, and then of course, my pandemic brain has made it even harder, because it's hard to write, it's hard to read, it's hard to focus, but I've been gaining that focus back. I think as we start to kind of figure out, okay, this might be a while, we're going to have to be indoors a lot more than I expected to be. So kind of getting back to that.
Fantastic. Well, we are definitely looking forward to it, and we're so excited for your next adventure, and so excited that AutoCrit is going to continue to be a part of it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Crystal, beside the virtual fire, if you will.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
So much fun. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Join us again next time for a new Fireside Chat. And if you enjoyed this session, let us know in the comments. Crystal, again, thank you so much. We're looking forward to testing out some of your recipes too from your website. Thank
you.
Guys, enjoy.